Hey everyone, today's show is brought to you by Splice. Head over to splice.com/AfroDJMac. If you're thinking about trying some of the newest plugins, why not use their rent-to-own program? They let you try the plugin free for 3 days, and then you pay a small monthly fee until you own the plugin. And you can pause your payments, you can resume at any time until it's all paid off, and then you own the license right out. Check out splice.com/AfroDJMac and try some of the newest plugins now. How's it going, everybody? Welcome to the Music Production Podcast. I'm your host, Brian Funk. Today, I'm here with Anthony Clint Jr., runs the site clintproductions.com. Doing a lot of cool stuff with music and production and licensing. I'm really happy to have you here. What's up, Anthony?
Hey, man. How's it going, Brian? I appreciate you having me. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, me too. I'm super happy to have you. Been enjoying your work recently.
Thank you.
You caught my attention, especially with the video you did recently with the vacuum cleaner that you sampled.
Oh, yeah. That was fun, man. I had fun making that.
I love that kind of like experimental, trying to use things that aren't instruments to make music.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, like in that video, and I'll put a link to it in the show notes so people can see. But
Okay, cool.
It's like I just love how like the vacuum cleaner, which is normally like a really like intense sound, it's intrusive,
It's noisy.
Yeah. Like my dogs don't like it.
Oh, dude, my dog hates it. Like he runs and hides. He's a big punk, but yeah.
But in the track you make, it becomes like almost like a peaceful like ocean, wave coming in and out, and it's really cool that you're able to transform that.
Yeah, definitely. I just wanted to do something out the box. I'm working on an instrumental album, and the goal for each track is to use something random. Like I got my Instagram followers involved and pretty much just told them like, just send me something super random, like around the house or outside or something. And then I'll figure out a way to kind of implement it into a track and just be really creative with it. So that's what that's about.
That's a great idea, because it's so hard to focus, at least for me. Like when I get down into the studio to work, it's like I got all these instruments, all these sounds, there's a billion directions. I love 800 different kinds of music. And the idea like that you're getting like that inspiration, and it's this one like kind of idea that glues everything together, I think is a really smart way to do things to help focus and give yourself direction.
Yeah, definitely. It's definitely a boost to inspiration, and it just keeps you focused and locked in and creative.
What's one of the weirder suggestions you've gotten?
The goat squeals. I did the somebody suggested using goat squeals, and I didn't know what I was gonna do. I didn't know if I was gonna, because I'm in Georgia, so it's some farms out here. I didn't know if I was gonna go to a farm and sample goats or what, but I ended up, just going on YouTube. It was a lot less hassle than trying to find a goat, and people probably would have looked at me weird coming to a farm with mics and recording equipment. But yeah. So yeah, man, I figured it out, and then next up, my wife and I were actually expecting, and
Oh, congratulations.
yeah. So my next track that I'll be working on, I'm gonna kind of implement we got like audio of the baby's, kind of first heartbeat slash swoosh thing. So I'm gonna try and throw that in the track and,
Wow.
be creative with that too. So yeah, it's pretty interesting stuff.
That's a really cool one to do. And
Yeah, definitely.
yeah, like personal connection and everything. And
Definitely.
yeah, I like that. I'll be on the lookout for it.
Yeah, man, definitely.
So I thought, we'd start off just like kind of getting some introductions out of the way. Maybe you want to tell people like what you're up to. You got your website, you got some really cool webinars going on. What's going on in your world right now?
Yeah, so lately I've been focusing a lot on producing music for TV and film. Been doing a lot of reality shows, just like background music cues and things like that. Um, just finalized a deal for a Netflix film, which I was more so on the publishing end of that. So that we got that in the works, and yeah, man, even working with independent artists on projects and things like that. So kind of have my hands on a few different projects right now, and of course the webinar you mentioned, I have that up, and that's pretty much just my way of just kind of giving back information on how to get started in licensing your music. One of the easiest ways to get started in licensing your music, because I feel like a lot of producers, we're constantly looking for ways to generate and monetize, our talents and our music and things like that. And
Yeah.
music licensing is a cool way to do that. So the webinar just kind of, it's like an introductory webinar of just kind of, breaking down, like, the easiest way to get started and getting your music on TV and things like that. So
Hmm.
yep.
Yeah, it's a great point. Trying to find ways to make your music career happen, like with it's so hard to sell records these days, and a lot of like the old style, the old ways or ancient history, and it's just not going to happen anymore.
Right, exactly.
So it's so important to think outside the box, and I think I've taken a similar approach a little bit too, in like the giving back to the community and trying to share what I've learned and what I come up with along the way.
Mhm.
And yeah, I think it's a really interesting topic, and it's got to be a lot of fun to turn on one of these shows and see your track in the background, hear it going on.
It is, man. It's cool, man. It's a cool experience, and you're just watching, and you're just like, whoa, like I did that, and a bunch, like millions of people are listening to this same track as well. So it's
Yeah,
crazy, man. It's pretty cool.
yeah, that's awesome. What was like the first thing you got in? Like, what do you have like a fond memory of like the first time seeing your song in a show or something?
Um, I think my first TV placement, I didn't see it when it happened. It was a Fox Sports placement, but the first placement that I actually, like, I was literally just watching TV and just heard it
Uh
was
huh.
Keeping Up with the Kardashians.
Oh,
And it
nice.
was like, it was a scene, like a transitional scene where there was like no dialogue. They're like transitioning and you can just hear it as clear as day. And yeah, that was pretty cool. My wife was sitting there next to me, so that makes it even better, man. We get to experience that together. So it was dope, man.
Yeah, yeah, that's cool. I've
Yeah.
I've had that only like once or twice on radio. It was like high school and college radio. Driving in the car, and a song of our old band came on. I was like, "What?"
Wow.
I had to like pull over
Yeah.
the car, and like I had a friend in the car, and we're just like, "What?"
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, he didn't believe me. Actually, he thought I like put it on in the CD player or something.
Right. That's funny.
Yeah. That's cool. That's cool. Music licensing is definitely something I'm kind of interested in. I've never really dabbled in at all, mostly because I don't
Mhm.
know where to start. And
Yeah.
but I think for the way I make music, a lot of times I take things pretty far, but then it like I don't really know where to go with it after that. And I got a
Mhm.
lot of like instrumentals and like little clips of cool ideas.
Mhm.
Um, I guess that's like a common issue a lot of people have, but
Yeah, a lot of ideas and
yeah,
never like fully developed or and finished and things like that.
it
Yeah.
really takes me like the planning stage, I think, to follow through on something where I need to know what I'm trying to do like completely,
Mhm.
and then I find I finish things more. But when it's this kind of like showing up, trying out all my sounds and presets, and
Mhm.
a lot of times that doesn't have any direction.
Yeah, yeah. I definitely understand that, man. Definitely.
That must be something that you have to deal with a lot. So, do you have any thoughts? How do you manage to complete your work and not leave the unfinished graveyard on the hard drive of unfinished ideas?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I try and every day, like I have a like a weekly kind of calendar, which, certain days I'm
Hmm.
working on certain things, like Sunday will be dedicated to content creation. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday may be, just TV and film stuff, and then Thursday, Friday, and Saturday would be just working on, music for artists. So I kind of chop things up that way to keep me focused through the week, because literally, like, between artists and TV and film, dude, I could just be all over the place and never
Yeah.
get anything done. And then what I do every day is I'll type out, a to-do list of things that I want, to finish today. Whether that's, a few tracks or a track or an idea or, paperwork or sending somebody another mix or something like that. Just kind of write down something that's actionable, something that's reachable for that day, and then just check it off as I get it done. So that way, once my day is over, I can look at this list and say, okay, I got something done, and I can kind of move on. And it just keeps my head clear,
Yeah.
just trying to, remember everything can just be a lot sometimes. It clouds your creativity. So yeah, I just write those, that to-do list down in the iPad and kind of check it off from there.
Yeah, I'm as we talk, I like to just write down things that I'll put in the show notes. And
Yeah.
this notebook is filled with little to-do lists
Yeah,
for
I
like
believe it.
the day, just it I like this idea of like, if I can finish these 2 or 3 things
Mhm.
tomorrow, say, tomorrow's a productive day.
Yeah,
And it is so powerful. It's like the simplest technology, right? But
definitely.
but to just have like, okay, I'm gonna do this and this, and I get such satisfaction out of scribbling things off the list.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
It's like, yeah,
Definitely.
victor. It's like crossing the finish line or something in a race.
Yeah, man. It motivates you because it doesn't seem like you're just sitting down there working on nothing and you're just doing a bunch of nothing. It's like, no, I can see that I did this,
Yeah.
and you feel accomplished, man.
Yeah, it's a big thing for me. I go back in my notebook because, this stuff piles up and things sometimes get lost, but it's nice to see like, all right, I don't have to look at that page anymore because it's all X'd out.
Mhm.
That
Right.
one's off the table of worries.
Yeah, exactly.
That's cool. Yeah, I'd like to ask you maybe like, what are some of your bits of advice for someone that wants to start seeing their tracks on TV and film? And
Yeah. Um, my advice is,
obviously watch your
there's
webinar. That's step one.
yeah, yeah, definitely watch the webinar. It's a lot of information in there. And then, at the end, I even give you an opportunity to take it a step further, and I kind of give you access to my like the exact blueprint that I used, when
Ah,
starting out to kind of land my first 10 placements. I call it the road to 10 placements. But pretty much, man, like, when I kind of started this journey a few years ago, and my goal was to just go as hard as I can and land 10 TV placements. So what that included was just reaching out to, first of all, I guess just getting a solid list of music, 5 to 10 to 15, just solid tracks, that I thought were strong and that, companies would want to use. And then just start reaching out to music licensing companies and music libraries to see if they're looking for music and things like that. Because that's a good way to get in because they have relationships already established with TV networks and music supervisors. To where once you sign with a particular music library or licensing company, they're taking your music and then they're kind of pitching it for you.
hmm.
Because it can be tough trying to build a relationship from scratch from with a music supervisor when they already have these established relationships from years and years of people that they can rely on for music consistently. So a music library, music licensing company is a great way to kind of get in there, and finding a company that actually specializes in the genre of music that you do. Because literally, I mean, there's needs for everything out there. It's just a matter of finding that company, music licensing company or library that fits the lane that you're in.
Hmm. Yeah, I guess whatever kind of show, film, I mean, there's just a world of music that's necessary, and it's not always one type of thing. I would
Yeah.
imagine even on like a show like Keeping Up with the Kardashians, like there's tons of different styles of music depending on whatever antics are happening, in that
Yeah,
particular
yeah,
episode.
definitely. Yeah, I mean, I've gotten requests for like hip hop stuff, for pop stuff, and then every now and then, like they'll just go left field and be like, we want like Italian hip hop or like just something just randomly twisted with another genre, and you
Hmm.
just you won't see it. Like they want to hear the what's an Italian instrument? The what do you
The
the
accordion?
accordion. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So like they would want like accordion with like hip hop drums and stuff like that. So
Huh.
yeah, man, it can get interesting.
Right,
Definitely.
right. I have to imagine that that's probably pretty fun from a creative perspective to get
It
that kind
is.
of fuel.
Hmm.
Hmm.
And then it goes back to, how you mentioned kind of staying focused and not just drifting away in creativity. Like, when you get a brief, you have a purpose, you
Yeah.
have an outline of what you need to be creating. And I haven't had beat block like in a long time because of TV and film. Like I know exactly what I'm sitting down to make,
Hmm.
because of the information that they're feeding us and the needs that they request. So
Right. Yeah, I think a big part of I like that beat block. I haven't heard that, but like a writer's block, beat block kind of thing is
exactly.
definitely the like openness.
Hmm.
I teach high school English, and I compare it a lot to like writing a paper or something. And
Hmm.
the biggest thing I find, the easiest way to get writer's block is to sit down like at the computer with a blank page and there's
Oh
nothing
man,
there, and you're trying to write the perfect first sentence. And
it's intimidating, man.
it's so much better to get out, I think, like a notebook and just scribble and write and just flood the pages with ideas.
Hmm.
I think a lot of times with music, it's like that too, to just throw things down. But the focus is definitely hard, and I just think that again, like what you said about like the Instagram followers, and then getting something like the request for the accordion hip hop
Hmm.
is a cool challenge too. It's how
It
am I going to
is.
make this work?
Right, exactly.
Hmm. Do you find that this is influencing the way you write a lot, or are you kind of more writing and then putting your stuff out there and just seeing if it gets picked up?
It has a huge influence on how I write. Usually, I don't write anything until I get a request, unless I know like this is a style of music that I know is going to get used regardless. But for the most part, man, I just wait till the briefs come in, and then I kind of get to work from there,
Hmm.
because I don't like to waste time. I want to be purposeful in everything that I create. So I'm rarely just creating just for nothing, for what I mean,
Yeah.
like with no goal in mind. So yeah, it influences my creating heavily.
Hmm. It's got to be kind of nice too, though, just to have like, okay, here's your direction today. Like,
Exactly. I mean, because it's like like you said, like if you don't have that direction, it's just like now you have to think, okay, what do I want to create today? And it takes a burden off of you, honestly, and just allows you to know exactly where to go. So I love it, man.
hmm. Yeah, and I teach a online course for Berkeley in Boston, and it's sampling with Ableton Live is the
Nice.
type of course it is. And
Okay.
there are very specific assignments. One of them is like create like a horror TV show intro. And
Wow. Yeah.
you get, and there's like strict limitations. It has to be like under a minute,
Hmm.
and certain sampling techniques need to be used, and it's pretty amazing like what that direction allows people to put together in 1 week
Yeah.
and just get it done.
Yep. Definitely. I think I don't know, man. Limitations. I think it brings out the best, and I mean, for me personally, because I don't know, it causes you to get straight to the point as
Mm,
far as like what you need to get done, and you don't have time to just freely float around. It's like, okay, this is a limitation here, this is a limitation here, so I got to stay here, and it really just drives the focus, in my opinion.
I couldn't agree more because I think we have endless options these days. And I mean, every sound, every sample is a click away. You got your goat samples in minutes by going on YouTube.
Right.
Could you imagine without that the trouble you'd go through?
Oh my goodness. Yeah.
And it's been it's hard sometimes to like stick those on yourself because you think creativity has to do with freedom, but I really think it has more to do with how you solve problems in a limited situation.
Yeah, I agree.
Hmm.
I agree. I mean, I think producing music, being a producer, you're pretty much a problem solver. I mean, everything from, figuring out, even working with artists, like you have to figure out how to bring their vision to life. You have to figure out, the biggest thing with artists is you have to figure out what they mean when they say certain things, because they hear it, they know what they want, but they may not necessarily be able to articulate it as a producer or a musician would. So, you're kind of that middleman between the sound that they want and, how they're communicating it. So yeah, it's a lot of problem solving involved in what we do.
Yeah, I always think back to I read some stuff with George Martin from, producer for the Beatles,
Yeah.
and how a lot of times like John Lennon would come in and say like, I want this to sound like the Dalai Lama's on a hilltop. And it's like such not a musical way to
Like
describe
what?
things. Yeah. And his like ability to translate that into the sound was one of the things they loved about working with him.
Yeah,
And
that's awesome.
yeah, I really like that actually, hearing people try to articulate musical ideas when maybe they don't have the technical vocabulary for it. They're not going to say, I want you to put like a delay with a filter on it at around 3K, like none of this. And it's more just like these abstract terms. And I think it kind of keeps my mind fresh from becoming too technical about making music.
Right.
It's such a weird art because there is so much technical, it could be mathematical even.
Yeah.
And yet you also have to balance like an emotional thing. And it's very easy for me as I learn more and more, and like as I was learning guitar back in the day and like seeing like chord progressions and scales, and I would start saying to myself, oh, that's the 1-4-5 progression, instead of like feeling the 1-4-5 progression for what it does emotionally.
Yeah.
That's I guess that's a fun challenge for you in dealing with artists.
Oh yeah,
to put that
definitely.
together.
Yeah, because it's, like you said. I mean, it's they're speaking one language, and you're coming from a technical perspective, so you may know the technical terms, and you say it to them, and they're like, "What are you talking about?" Like, I just wanted to sound this way. That's all I know. It's like, okay, I'll figure out how to get it to sound, how you want it to sound. So yeah, that's always fun.
Yeah. I would have to think that a big part of your job too is keeping the artists comfortable and inspired while they're working with you.
Yeah, I mean that's a huge part of the job, because if the artist isn't comfortable, then they won't give you the best performance. You always want, like, anytime I have a session with the artist, every artist I've worked with, they'll tell you it's like, we're gonna laugh, and I'm gonna laugh at you when you do certain bad notes, because I don't take it too serious. I mean, you're
Yeah.
gonna hit bad notes. I'm gonna play bad notes and make mistakes. So we just laugh about it, man. We have a good time, and at the end of the day, I feel like once you feel comfortable, you can give it 100%. There's no, you don't have to hold back. You don't have to feel uncomfortable. You can just give it 100%, and that usually ends up in giving a better performance.
Right. Yeah, because to establish that like trust can be
Exactly.
tricky to, especially if it's a soul bearing thing and you're trying to really dig deep to
Hmm.
find a way to get that. It can be really hard. And I mean, I've been in those positions myself where I felt uncomfortable about whatever I was playing or trying to
Hmm.
do and guarded.
Yeah, definitely. And every artist is different too. So I mean, what works for one artist, you may have to have a totally different approach for another artist. One artist, you may be able to be straightforward and just be like, that note sucks, do a different one. Or another artist would be like, let's try this, and be a little more passive. You know what I mean? Because some
Yeah.
people, they can take it straight. Other people, you may have to season it a little bit, so it's
Right.
easier to take down. So just depends, man.
Yeah, that's a funny way to put it. It's
Yeah.
but it's hard to like separate yourself from your performance,
Hmm.
to separate like to be okay with like having a bad performance or a bad idea and not
Hmm.
having that be the definition of who you are and what you do.
Right.
Uh,
Yeah.
That's got to be a sensitive thing to walk around in certain situations. How do you feel that out? What do you do like beforehand, even before like you even get together to actually make the music?
You like with an artist,
Yeah.
usually we have a conversation just up front, and we just hash out the business, just kind of the business side of things. So all of that is up front. You don't have to
Mm,
worry about that. And then from there, just ask them, what their vision is. What do you want? What kind of record do you want? What kind of sound are you going for? What do you want to talk about? Um, and then, from there, sometimes they may approach me with, a lyrical idea, or maybe a hook or a full written song or idea, and then I'll just kind of create the music from there, and then, send it to them, and then they'll finish writing to it,
mhm.
and then we'll get together and just kind of, record the record, the full record. And then sometimes it may, if I'm responsible for doing the music and the lyrics and everything, then I'll work with um, songwriters if I need to write the song, and then we'll do a demo, and then we'll send the demo to the artist, and then the artist will decide, if it works, and then if they love it, then we'll cut the record. And then they'll eventually come into the studio, and then we'll cut it there. So a couple different ways, but yeah, usually it starts with me kind of working on the music, creating a demo for the artist to hear, and then we just kind of go from there.
Right. So you do, I guess, a lot of this online, sending files back and forth, kind of.
Oh yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, man, it's huge because I mean, it saves time, it saves gas for
Yeah.
people coming back and forth, and I think it allows each person to kind of be in their zone and do their own thing before we come together. And I mean, sometimes we have, collaborative sessions where we just kind of create from scratch, and those are dope too. But yeah, most of the time, man, like online file transfer is a huge part of it.
Right. Right. Yeah. Saving that time and the, the gas is definitely huge.
Yeah.
There's I guess though the personal connection is big though,
Yeah.
that you do kind of sacrifice a little bit with
Oh
that
yeah.
that workflow. There's nothing like that, sharing that energy when you hit a certain note and someone else goes, "Yeah."
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah, I worked on an EP for a songwriter, and he put a bunch of songs together, demoed them himself, and just kind of released the project. And we did the whole project like that, where everything was just organic. Like I was sitting in front of the keyboard and playing with sounds, and then we would just vibe off of each other and be like, "Yo, that's dope." Like, okay, we'll go from there, and then once we have the main idea or like the hook, then then I would go in and just finish the track, and then he would go start writing and things like that, and that it was a really dope experience. So that, yeah, that definitely is
Oh,
is
that's
always
cool.
good to have. Yeah.
So you guys kind of like give birth to the idea together, and then go away and do your separate things so that you
Yeah.
can reconvene. And I
Yeah.
guess that's probably a fun moment too when you bring the both ends of the work together
Yeah.
once again.
Definitely,
Yeah.
definitely.
That seems like a cool way to sort of get the best of both worlds. To get
Yeah.
the personal thing, but also you have your space too to kind of try things.
Right. Exactly.
Um, Something you mentioned early was in this part of the talk was getting the business stuff out of the way early.
Hmm.
So I'm sure that saves a lot of problems in the future, right? And I
Oh
think it's
yeah.
something like a lot of musicians don't like to talk about, that they kind of avoid, and maybe it feels like not artistic and kind of gross.
Yeah.
How do
Yeah.
you approach those conversations without sounding like without getting too business minded and taking the art and soul out of it?
I mean, it is what it is. I mean, there's the art and soul side, and then there's the business side. And I feel like if you want to be taken seriously, and you want to be professional, these are conversations that you have to have. Like, I mean, there's a creative side to every business. There's the product, and then there's just the business. So yeah, usually it just starts off like, look, this is the fee, this is the agreement, and once we finish writing the song, we're going to do a split sheet, and just kind of lay out everything that'll be done, and and then once the song is complete, these are the next steps that we take as far as copyright or registering the song with CSAC or BMI or ASCAP, things like that. And I feel like it always works. Like I've never had anybody just be like, oh, I don't want to talk about this. It was just always okay, cool. Like I agree with that. That's cool. And I mean, most people respect it because it's not just a one-sided thing. It protects, both parties. So people are usually cool with it. And then, after that's hashed out, uh, the only thing there is left to do is just be creative. You don't
Right.
have that in the back of your mind, like, is the business going to work out right? Or is somebody going to try and, screw me over? Like,
Yeah.
there's none of that. It's just like, yo, I know the business is in order. Like now let's just vibe out and create. So yeah. And I mean, I've talked to people and producers who've been in situations where that conversation didn't happen in the beginning, and then time goes by, the record's released, and they're not credited, or they didn't do split sheets, or the song isn't registered with their performing rights organization. So just a lot of different situations, man, that could have been avoided if that conversation was had in the beginning. So
Right.
I think it's important.
Being direct is the remedy, huh?
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
Yeah, because I mean, I could tell you, you see it a lot. It happens a lot with bands where that you're just getting together, you're having fun, and it starts growing, and everyone kind of just assumes they want the same sort of growth and
Mhm.
results, and it's always tough if you realize that that's not the case.
Right.
Down the road after you've already put the blood, sweat, and tears into it.
Exactly.
Hmm. Yeah, so I could see that, like having that out of the way, because that can be a real impediment to creativity if you start thinking like, oh, am I going to get credit for this? Because I'm not sure I want to put my best forward, or I don't know if I want to share this idea.
Right, right.
Yeah,
And then like I said, it goes like I don't like to waste time. So it's like if you don't agree to it, that's fine. But at least neither one of us wasted our time working
yeah,
on something, and we knew later on down the road we wasn't gonna agree on something business wise. So, it saves time and it saves headaches.
yeah. Well, that's good. And they say, sometimes the success you have is a result of the uncomfortable conversations you're willing to have.
Oh yeah, I agree.
So get that out of the way early and directly.
Hmm.
Smart way to deal with it.
Yeah.
So you guys probably know I'm a big advocate of coming up with your own sounds to have your own musical identity. And I thought that we had a pretty cool service in our sponsor Splice with Splice Sounds. They have over 2 million different sounds and loops and presets that you can browse. But the thing that I think is really cool that you can do is make your own little library. You can curate your own sounds, add them to your own sample library within Splice, and pretty soon you start developing your own style, your own sound, and it becomes your signature. It's a great way to do that. If you sign up at splice.com/AfroDJMac and use the code AfroDJMac, you'll get a free month of Splice sounds as well. So you got nothing to lose. It's a great thing to try, and there's lots of great sounds in there of all different styles. So check out splice.com/AfroDJMac and use the code AfroDJMac. So in maybe contrast to the idea of not wasting time,
Hmm.
I read one of your blogs about making mistakes in the studio, how
Yeah,
you
yeah.
encourage it. Um,
Yeah.
how does that fit into the whole plan? Maybe tell us
So
about that. I imagine that has to do with like taking risks and having fun.
yeah, man, that's it, man. Like I was in I think that was the one I was in a session with my guy. He's amazing guitarist, man. But yeah, we were in a session together, and it's fun, dude. Like you can't be scared to make mistakes. And he had like hit a couple bad notes, and we just started laughing about it. And it goes back to that whole being comfortable thing, and being willing to risk, just doing something stupid and people laughing because it's not that serious. You know what I mean? So, yeah, I like making mistakes is all about just, being experimental, going all out, and just trying to give the best performance, but not being so closed-minded and afraid to do
Mm,
something wrong that you end up under delivering. You know what I mean?
yeah.
So, if if you kind of get that out of your mind and you just always just go for the best, then the best will come out eventually. You may make a couple mistakes in the process, but because you don't have that fear of making the mistakes, then man, you tear the ceiling down, man, and the possibilities are endless.
Yeah, that's a good way to look at it for sure.
Yeah,
I always encourage people to make bad music.
you
uh,
have to.
just make bad music. It's okay. Like if you go into it with that perspective, like this might be bad. You've suddenly shed all these like artistic like motivations and all of these things that can often like cause us to be a little too judgmental.
Right.
I think we get really judgmental on an idea really early. We're comparing it to everything else we've ever heard, every piece of music that's polished and been worked on by teams of people. And your little baby idea never stands a chance against that if you get in that mindset.
Yeah, and then you'll never put anything out, and then you'll
Yeah.
never get constructive criticism to get better, and then you never grow, man, and that's not a good place to be. You want to continue to grow and learn. So
Mm.
yeah,
I love that approach and not being afraid to laugh and have fun. I got together with a couple of my old buddies. I think it was last weekend, and we were just playing music in the basement, and we were pretty much laughing the entire time we were doing it, just
yeah,
because we weren't worried about it. Like whatever riff someone came up with, we just tried to make a song out of it. We were just
yeah,
there was no question of like, oh, this is cheesy, or this isn't complicated enough, or this isn't like a cool genre of music that we all
mm,
like. It was just whatever. We were just and in the end, there were like a couple cool ideas that surfaced out of that.
nice,
You know?
yeah. That's cool. Yeah, that takes me back to the days, man, where like I'm a musician. I was kind of like a musician first, even before being a producer. But we would have what's called like shed sessions, where just a bunch of musicians would just get together. Man, it was like no format. You just hop on the instrument and just start playing stuff, and we'd just go around. Each musician would kind of have a solo thing, and
Mm.
yeah, like dope ideas would come from that, man. And it's just a good place to just get all your chops and creativity out. And I think it's good. I think it's good to have that.
Yeah, I do too. I think they're really valuable. And I left feeling really inspired too. I,
Hmm.
I don't know if it's something like an audience member would have particularly enjoyed.
Right, right.
It wasn't
Yeah,
really meant to be watched or listened to, but the
exactly.
just the pure enjoyment of there's all this loud music and you're looking around and you can tell your friend's laughing his ass off, but you can't even hear him. And there's that energy exchange of like just kind of pure joy.
Yeah, yeah. That's cool, man. Definitely.
Those are good times, and I think it took like a little maturity, like musically, to let go enough to
Hmm.
get to those points where you can just kind of not worry about what is this actually sounding like.
Right. Yeah.
You know, that's cool. So another one I wanted to ask you about,
Okay.
overproducing.
Okay. Yeah.
It's
That's a
so
good one.
easy to do that these days. I mean, you could never finish anything in this world. You can always try something new.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that? How do you work around that? How do you avoid the temptation?
Oh man. So I this was a big problem for me, man, because I was a musician. I grew up in church and like a gospel musician, and we like to and gospel music, man. It's some complicated music,
Oh
like
yeah.
it's like with just different. We love to throw in changes and transitions and crazy hits and all of this stuff. And I had to learn how to tone that down as a
Mm.
producer. Like one of my mentors was just like, "Yo, like I can turn this one track into like three different records because it's so many melodies. There's so much going on." And what I had to learn how to do, at least from an artist perspective, for someone who's going to write vocals over a piece of music,
Mm.
you have to leave room for them to do their thing. So a songwriter, they're gonna sing a melody, they're gonna sing melodies and harmonies and things over your music. So you have to leave room for that. You can't have five different melodies and counter melodies going on at the same time. Because what would happen is I would sit down in a listening session with, you know, a group of songwriters and artists, and they was vibing out to the tracks like, man, this is dope, but it's like it's too finished. Like I can't, there's no room for me to fit in there. Like it's like a full record already with just the instruments. And then that it kind of, you know, just triggered a light bulb. It's like, okay, like I need to tone it down and I need to leave it open so that, you know, a vocalist can come over and be creative and add their own thing to it. So that's one perspective of it. Then the other side, you know, when composing for TV and film is, you know, a lot of times if you're doing background cues, you're gonna have people talking over your music.
Right.
So you can't have a lot going on because it can be distracting to the actual dialogue, which is, you know, the star of the show. You know what I mean? So you want to kind of keep it open enough and not super, super busy to where like it's just you can't even focus on what the person's saying. And then you want to be careful because certain sounds and frequencies can also be distracting.
Mm.
You know, just like high pitched, noisy sounds. You know what I mean? Like like vacuum cleaners, ironic, but like you know, just different sounds can just be distracting. Like I've had to make edits on some tracks because the editor was just like, it's this one particular sound. It's just like it's too scratchy.
Mm.
And it won't work over the dialogue, and I had to switch that out. So yeah, you just have to be. It's tough to judge when to stop. I guess my rule of thumb is less is more. You know, if it sounds like something else can be added to it, then don't add it. You know what I mean? Like usually I'll have my drums, I'll have a bass line or 808. I'll have, you know, like a main pad or keys or piano or something. Um, one like synth lead sound and maybe one other sound. It just really depends on the kind of music I'm doing, but usually like no more than like, you know, like four sounds or something like that in addition to the drums just to keep it, you know, just keep it simple. Less is more.
Mm. Well, you get to sort of feel the sounds more too and pay attention to the detail of each sound.
That's true. Yeah,
And,
I agree.
and you play multiple instruments, right?
I do. Drums, keys, piano, bass, and a little organ too. I play around.
So it's got to be a little tempting to kind of like strut yourself a little bit on each instrument. You know,
Yeah.
because you're doing every instrument, and you want them all to be kind of special, and you're also doing them one by one. I'm sure you're not a one man band in the old days, right? With the kick drum tied to your back.
No, not at all.
So it's you don't always know how this is all going to come together while you're doing it too, and the temptation to make something interesting that might be too interesting for what your final product actually is.
Yeah, it's true. Like you gotta keep in mind, okay, I'm gonna add a live bass in this later. So, you know, I'm gonna want to do something with that. So let me leave room for that. And you want everything to complement each other and not fight for attention. You know, you want the bass to shine within its lane. You know, you want the synth lead to shine within its lane and so on and so forth. So yeah.
Yeah, I definitely have a better time making those decisions when everything's happening live in the moment. Like if it's a bunch of people playing together, I can say, oh, okay, well, we got to tone down this and we got to bring this part out a little bit. But when I'm doing it one at a time, I'm programming my drums like, okay, I'm going to do all these little cool ghost notes. And,
Yeah.
It's a little bit different because at that time, it's the only element going on.
That's true. Yeah.
So you want it to be interesting. But restraint, that's a big thing to understand when you're doing things piece by piece.
It is. Yeah, I agree. Because, you want to just go all in 100% on the one instrument that you're focused on at that time. So, I can see that.
I think, again, it highlights the importance of the plan, knowing, like you said, I'm going to have an electric bass on this track. So I need to kind of look out for that. Whereas without the plan, you're kind of just trying things out, making them as spectacular as you can on their own, and then put them together.
Yeah. I mean, I think the cool thing too about technology is that, when you're doing things, one at a time in your DAW, then you can always take things out,
Yeah.
which is good. So I mean, if you have an idea, lay it down, and then, once everything is complete and you realize that something's sounding too busy, you can always take it out. So that's a good thing. Um yeah, like I try not I don't plan too much when just in the creation process, creating a track. I'll have an idea, but um I always try and get everything out, in that little 8 bar loop that I work in. And because sometimes what'll happen is I'll start off with an idea, and then I'll switch to the second sound, and then the second sound sparked something different, and then I was like, "Okay, now I wanna go in a different direction," and then I'll delete the first thing that I did, and it turns into something different. So, yeah, I
Mhm.
think it's important to just get the ideas out, and then when you go back and listen, you have that option to delete.
Yeah. I like that workflow a lot actually, where I'll do kind of like arrangement by subtraction, where
Mhm.
I'll put I work in Ableton Live, so I'll often like do a lot of stuff in their session view where I'm just throwing ideas down, and then
Okay.
I'll just get them all in the arrangement view, which is like your timeline left to right,
Okay.
and then just delete clips out. Just okay, I'm gonna
Yeah.
this part's not gonna come in until the eighth bar. This part's not gonna come in until after the 16th or whatever, and okay, here comes like a vocal. So now we're gonna pull some things out of the way.
Yeah.
And I like that because it sort of satisfies that that like urge to just kind of go overboard a little bit.
Right.
But then it also forces me to kind of hear the big picture later on and
Yeah.
say, okay, like, what's the point of this whole section of this song? Like, so, do I need all this mumbo jumbo going on with that?
Right.
Uh,
Exactly.
and a lot of times the answer is no. And
Yep.
I'm always surprised how often a track sounds better once I hit mute or delete on a
Yeah.
certain sound.
I agree, man. Definitely.
Mhm. So you talk a lot about working fast and finishing. What are some
Mhm.
things you like to do? Because you have a busy schedule. You're doing all sorts of different things. What are some of your techniques for working quickly, getting work done, and not getting stuck in the same old spots over and over again?
Right. That's a really great question. So what I like to do is create like Logic session templates in Logic and Pro Tools, just depending on what I'm working on. But I'll create sessions for different genres of music that I produce. If I'm working on like sports tracks, there's certain sounds that I always use in all of my sports tracks
Uh,
that I know I'm going to pull up every time. So I create a template for that. So those sounds are like already there and loaded. And then if it's like a trap, hip hop track or something, there's certain sounds that I'll normally use there, and so on and so on. So I create templates so that way I just open them up. Most of my sounds are there. Of course, I'll go into the plugin, maybe change a preset, use a different sound, and then just create. But all of my plugins are already there as far as mixing, and literally all I'm doing is just plugging in a different melody, different chords, and drums and things like that. And man, I tell you, like it really sped up my just production process, because now I'm not I'm not sitting here clicking and opening up plugins and loading the plugins and then remixing the whole thing from complete
yeah.
scratch, and it helps a lot. So that's one thing that I use. I use the same thing as far as recording vocals in Pro Tools, where I kind of have like a template set up for that as well, and that helps. And then after that, I just kind of have my workflow in Logic set up to where like my mastering plugins are like I'll have a mastering template. So all of those are like kind of loaded, and I just kind of drag the track onto that track that has the plugins. That way, I'm able to bounce out masters of different versions pretty quick. Because then I mean TV and film turnaround times can be like like today, like
Yeah.
the next hour. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like
Wow.
super quick.
Hmm.
So that really helps me because I don't have time to send it to like a master and mixing engineer. Like, hey, can you like master this for me? And they're like, yeah, I'll have it to you in 3 days. And then the music supervisor needs it like the next 30 minutes. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I have to create ways to be able to have that quick turnaround. So that helps a lot with the templates.
I guess that's a great selling point for you as someone that's producing music for TV and film that, yeah, I got it for you in a half hour. I'll be right back.
Yeah.
You know, to be able
Yeah,
to say I can get this done really fast so you can
definitely.
get it in for your deadline.
Oh yeah, definitely,
Mm.
man. I've had some close calls, man, where I was I was like out and about and I had got an email. It was just like, yo, they want to use this track for like a promo for this TV show. And like we need this what did they need? They needed like a different version or something. Um and they needed it like in the next couple hours. And I'm like, oh man. And it was like an old session. So I had I had rushed home and I'm like, I gotta find the session in one of my backup folders, pulled the session up, and it was something I did like years ago, and it was like an old version of Logic, and I didn't have a lot of those sounds still.
Man.
And I made the mistake of not printing it out to audio, and it was like all MIDI. So I had to like rush, go through, find sounds that sounded similar to the sounds I used at the time, and then hurry up, do it. Kind of, I had to tweak the mix because the sounds were a
Yeah,
little
of
different,
course.
and then bounce it out. So I was like working super super fast on that one, but I ended up eventually getting the placement, and it worked out. But if I didn't have those those templates and everything set in place, I probably would have missed out on that opportunity.
And a good lesson about printing MIDI tracks to audio and making stems of your work so
Oh
you can go
yeah,
back. Yeah.
yeah, definitely.
Huh. You know, I think when I first started, like I'm a rock and roll guy, like in bands and
Hmm.
stuff. That's where I come from. So when I
Hmm.
first started working in the computer and doing more like electronic production and stuff like that, um, I sort of had this like idea, like it was like wrong almost to use the same sounds every time. So
Hmm.
I would always make the new sounds. I'd bring up new instruments. It'd change every single time.
Hmm.
Um, but then I kind of got into this like phase of like back to rock and roll, back to the roots kind of thing. And it
Hmm.
occurred to me that like I already have a template for this. It's drums, it's bass, it's guitar, maybe like a keys somewhere and a vocal. And that's the template. And it just like it wasn't until like I came back to the old way that I realized why is that any better or worse than having your own, like say your certain drum machine loaded all the time with a certain bass.
Yep.
What's wrong with that? And man, like having that like realization changed things a lot for me.
Hmm.
And it also, I do something similar where I put like all of my sounds on a track and then just save that track in the library, and then you can just drag it on and be ready to go. I can just drag my entire mic'd drum kit into a
Hmm.
session and it's got all the effects. It's ready to go. I don't have to fiddle around with that again every single time because I lose
Exactly.
so much momentum in my creativity when I'm, okay, I know I got to compress the snare and EQ a little bit of this out. And by the time I start doing that, I don't even remember what I felt about my idea.
Yeah, exactly.
It's
Like
gone.
you lose the vibe, dude. Like
Yeah.
just on that dealing with the technical stuff. It's just like it's such a it's like I don't want to call it a waste of time because it's something that you like have to do, but if you can prevent doing it over and over and over again,
Yeah.
then man, it saves so much time.
Yeah. The repetitive tasks.
Hmm.
If you can identify the things you do over and over again and then somehow automate it or
Yeah.
make it into a template or a preset, it's so valuable.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
huge, man.
It's been a big focus of mine lately, as a matter of fact, just to have my guitar always mic'd up, ready to go. Boom, here we go.
Hmm.
Why am I doing this every single time? you know,
Right.
I'm putting the same devices in and then trying to find the same spots.
Yep. Yeah, save the time and just create a template, have it ready, and you can just go dig right into creating, man.
Yeah, get to work.
Yep, exactly.
Cool, man. Listen, I really appreciate your time spending it all with us. I think probably the best place to send people, right, is clintproductions.com.
Yeah, send them to
Yeah.
clintproductions.com. Everything is there, contact info, my social media links, which most like Instagram, Twitter is just at Clint Music. But yeah, you can definitely find everything on my website.
Yeah, Instagram is a fun one. Again, that's where I saw the vacuum one, and
Yeah.
just those like kind of quick bursts of excitement and inspiration. I
Yeah.
appreciate. I'm pretty sure anyone that is listening would too.
Thank you. I appreciate it, man.
Yeah. So yeah, and sign up for the free webinar, everyone.
Yes, definitely.
Learn a bit about getting your music out there. I gotta do more of that myself, and it's I love your idea of the calendar, like these 3 days I'm doing this day I'm doing that, because I definitely throw my stuff all together, mush it together, and just kind of I'm chipping away at like 3 different stones at once.
Right.
Something I should probably work on a little more.
Yeah, man. It helps, man. It just gives you a clear direction, and
Yeah.
yeah, it's just organizational tip, I guess.
Right.
It helps a lot.
Who would have known in school all that like talk of organization would be so practical in life.
I know, right?
So boring and not flashy, but really valuable.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, Anthony Clint Jr. Thanks so much for taking the time. Everyone head down to clintproductions.com. Check that stuff out. And again, thanks so much.
Thank you for having me, Brian. I appreciate it, man.
Cool. And thanks everyone for listening. Have yourselves a great day.